So Rhea Ripley made her choice basically 48 hours after she won the Women's Royal Rumble for 2023. She made her choice that she will be facing Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 39 in Los Angeles. This, of course, continues the ongoing rivalry that they've been having throughout the years. And basically, a lot of people, even JD from NY206 and Just Alex, have said it's basically becoming a full circle moment here. Because need we not remember, or need we forget, that heading into WrestleMania a couple of years ago, Rhea Ripley was the NXT Women's Champion. And she's the one that called out Charlotte Flair because Charlotte Flair had won the 2020 Women's Royal Rumble. She had won the 2020 Women's Royal Rumble. So Rhea was the one that called Charlotte out. She was the one that called Charlotte out to face her, basically, at WrestleMania. She basically wanted Charlotte to cash in her Royal Rumble title shot on her, which Charlotte did. Now, of course, that cost Rhea the NXT Championship to Charlotte, but then that went back, I think, to Rhea, courtesy of a triple threat match between Charlotte, Rhea, and Io at the NXT In Your House later that year. Point being, Rhea has not really had that much success against Charlotte. Even when Rhea went to the main roster, became the Raw Women's Champion at WrestleMania, I think the first person she lost that title to was Charlotte. So she's not really been, batting, very well. She hasn't been scoring Hail Marys against Charlotte throughout the years. So, with that said, as I was mentioning, because I wanted to make sure I got all the information correct, basically she hasn't been batting very well when it comes to facing Charlotte. So with her finally, on a third attempt, because I think it was like 2 out of the 3, recent years, she was like in the final 2 or something like that, final 3 of the Royal Rumble, she finally won it. And this time around, instead of challenging Bianca, which a lot of people thought she would do based on the history there, the recent storyline history, instead she's going to go after Charlotte, thus making it, like I said, a full circle, I guess you could say full circle transition. And the reason a lot of people, they're kind of like on the fence about it, but I think are going to start warming up to it, especially after, hearing what others like JD and Alex and even people like Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer and, people like Brian Zane and Sean Ross Sapp are going to say. In a way, storyline-wise and legit-wise, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense because, the entire thing about, the women's evolution, which started back in 2016, 17, the whole thing about it was having the women, evolve throughout the years. And Rhea is a, prime example of evolving from where she was, when she first appeared in the Mae Young Classic to her being the NXT UK champion and the NXT Women's Champion to now being where she's at currently with the Judgment Day. She is a prime example of evolving and learning from her past mistakes. And with her calling out Charlotte and saying, hey, you're the one I'm going to face at WrestleMania this year, storyline-wise, it makes a lot of sense because Charlotte this time is not going to be walking into the ring with the same Rhea Ripley she walked into the ring with previous times before, and including the last time they met at WrestleMania. This time around, she's walking into the ring with a Rhea Ripley that pretty much is being compared to the likes of China, because of the way she's been presented, the way she has grown, the way the way she is basically, um, I guess there's no way around to say it, showcasing her legit badassness or her legit badassery. That's probably what she is outside of WWE and off camera. She is legitimately portraying that on camera for the world to see. And this is a Rhea Ripley now that welcomes the fight. So so the way I look at this match, and I even super chatted this to Alex on Monday doing his Raw review, and he was talking about it. I told Alex honestly in the super chat, because a lot of fans, when they heard this was going to happen, like I said, some were mixed about it, some were okay about it. And those that were okay about it, and even somewhat mixed, said pretty much in their own ways that if she's going to do this, she's got to go to WrestleMania and do the Charlotte Flair, what Brock Lesnar did to John Cena, several years ago at SummerSlam, and that's basically run right through her. Because remember, this was I think the second time John and Brock had met since Brock Lesnar returned in 2012. And we got to remember, that first match back he had with John in the Extreme Rules, he lost. Here, a couple years later, 3 or 4 years later, they rectified that, and he ran roughshod over John. He basically squashed him, treated him like a jobber and an enhancement talent. And, upon hearing that Charlotte is going to challenge, not Charlotte, but upon hearing that Rhea is going to challenge Charlotte, this year at WrestleMania, and this being a completely different Rhea, basically a legit badassery, Rhea than we've ever seen. A lot of people believe that this Rhea has to do to Charlotte what Brock did a couple of years later at SummerSlam, what he did to John. Basically they're saying as soon as that bell rings, Rhea has to obliterate Charlotte. She has to run over her. She has to basically treat her like she is enhancement. She is a jobber. That she is basically no longer, the standard bearer of the women's division, whether it's Raw, SmackDown, or overall, period. Basically that's what they feel she needs to do. And you know what? I agree with them. And when Alex read that, just the way his reaction was, he agrees too. The fact is, if you're going to cement this version of Rhea Ripley as being the legit badass she is, in and outside of WWE's rings, and in and outside, on and off WWE's cameras, if you will, if you're going to legitimately do that, under the Triple H watch, she has to go in there and she has to run roughshod over Charlotte. And the story you could tell with Charlotte, is you could have Charlotte agree. She has no choice but to agree. Because she was chosen. But you could have, maybe from a story aspect, have her and Rhea not only officially sign for the match, even though it's official period, because Rhea chose her, but you can have a stipulation added that if Charlotte wants another shot at the title, she either has to come out and admit what everybody knows is true about her getting all these previous 14 reigns, or she has to agree that the only way she gets a rematch is that she legitimately earns it by beating a certain amount of opponents throughout, let's say, the next month or two, after Mania. That to me is a story you could tell, because then, when you look at it from Charlotte's side of things, she's going to be in a situation where she's like, she's not used to it. She's not used to having to earn her way. She's used to having everything handed to her, and now she's got to basically, if they go with that second option, beat certain opponents to get back to that scenario. And heck, you can have Rhea add the stipulation that one slip up, and Charlotte has to start all over again. It's back to square one. So. To me, you could tell an interesting story from Charlotte's perspective, that if she loses, she either, to get a rematch, has to admit what everybody knows is true, and that is she's had everything handed to her on a silver platter because of who her dad is, or she has to agree to face certain opponents, throughout the next month or two, or a couple of months, to get another shot at the title, and if she slips up just once, she has to start all over again. So yeah, so to me, WWE, Triple H, they have an interesting scenario right here when it comes to Rhea and Charlotte. The one scenario is you have Rhea go in there, which everybody is expecting, and run roughshod over Charlotte. Basically do to her what Brock Lesnar did to John Cena at Summerslam a couple of years ago. And in turn, you could tell a story from Charlotte's behalf of either she has to admit the truth of her being Ric Flair's daughter, being the reason she's gotten everything handed to her, or you have her agree to face different opponents throughout the next several months to get another shot at the title, because of the fact that, she has to now legitimately prove she is worthy. So, there's different, ways you can go with this on both sides of the spectrum, but the primary direction that they should go with Rhea in this match with Charlotte is she has to be put into a position based on how she is being presented now. She has to be put into a position of she is legitimately going to go in that ring at WrestleMania in Los Angeles in front of a sold-out crowd of 70, 80 plus, who knows how many's going to, pack that SoFi Stadium. Go in there, and as soon as that bell rings, just run roughshod and obliterate Charlotte. Treat her, like I said, like Lesnar treated Cena, from start to finish. Become champion, and then from a storyline perspective for Charlotte, make her probably come to the realization that, yeah, she's good, but if it wasn't for the fact that she was Ric Flair's daughter, maybe she wouldn't basically been so despised the way she was. And in the case of her match with Rhea, wouldn't have been on the receiving end of such a beating in the process of losing her title, to where she would have to either admit the truth to get a rematch or work her way back up legitimately. But yeah, I think, again, the overall consensus, though, with the match and its outcome from from start to finish, beginning to end, Rhea Ripley's got to go over in the match, no doubt, but she's got to go over by obliterating Charlotte Flair in the same way Brock Lesnar obliterated Cena at SummerSlam. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Do you think that's the direction they should go? Do you think they should let Mommy, go over in that way? I think they should. I think it not only would make Rhea be built as the legitimate badass that she is right now in and out of the ring, but it would really put her over as like one of the biggest threats, if not the biggest threat in the women's division, outside of the likes of Asuka and maybe Nia Jax and so on. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment below, live chat during the premiere. You will get a podcast version of this in the at my BW Roses Discussions podcast platform and all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. So yeah, let me know what your guys' thoughts are, and until next time, I am out.